Hello, Faggy. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Shabbat Tov. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Thank you. How about yourself?
Good. Happy Mother's Day.
Well,
How's Tammy?
good. We just went out for dinner for Mother's Day. Next door place was packed.
Where?
Next door.
Oh, next door. It's nice. The food is good.
Food is very good. Yeah, we actually ate
Very,
outside. It was very nice.
yeah, nice.
Oh, Delhi.
Okay. Okay.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
No, we're just saying hello to each other. I took, really, there's more?
What?
No, it's Tammy talking to me.
Oh,
How are you, Mario?
okay.
Yeah. Anna had a good day?
Yeah, we went to Ezra's and there was a big spread, too much to eat, like always.
Good, good.
When did it finish last week? I don't remember.
We finished the parak.
Oh, we finished 4?
Yes.
Ah,
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Shavuot Tov.
Shabbat Tov.
Yeah, Mrs. You move so that
Huh?
move this way so that it's not glaring. This
Okay, so what should I do?
move towards me.
oh, let's see.
That's good.
Okay. Well, you go this way.
We are going to start Parak A, but before we go to Parak A, the Parak Daled discussed the troubles that the enemies, primarily the Shomronim, prevented the Jews of Yerushalayim they interfered with the building of the Beis Hamikdash. And the last pasuk, Chavdalad said, "Badein betelas avidas Beis Eloha." So the work on the temple was stopped. Dibur Shalayim. V'avis batla was batal. Achnas tartein l'malchus Daryavish melech Pars until the second year of Darius II, which was Esther and Achashverosh's son. There's going to be an 18-year pause. Koresh, the first, allowed them to go up at the first year of his reign, and 18 years, which includes some years of his reign, and then Achashverosh's reign of 14 years, and then 2 years of the son, before the son allows them to rebuild it. So it's interesting. The Meforshim point out that initially Koresh allowed them to go, then they pulled back, then they were allowed to do it again. Based on that, there's the Ramban in his commentary on Sefer Bereshis always points out Maisa Avois Simin Labonim, that we are told about the stories of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Many of the stories happen to them, but they repeat to Klal Yisrael. And the Ramban, in commentary in Perek Chavav by Yitzchak, he says that the Babylonian exile is the same that happened to Yitzchak and Rivka with Avimelech, Melech Grar of the Plishtim. Initially, when Yitzchak and Rivka came to visit Avimelech, Avimelech sends out a decree that anyone who bothers Yitzchak and Rivka should be put to death. But soon, Yitzchak is banished from Gerar. Later on, Avimelech travels to Beersheba, and he and Yitzchak make a new covenant. So similarly, say the Meforshim, first Koresh, we're talking about Koresh, the king of the Persians, the first Koresh, because remember Darius II, Achashverosh's and Esther's son, is also called Koresh. So the first Koresh welcomed the exiles to go back to Jerusalem to build a temple. And everyone was instructed to treat them favorably. Just like initially, Avimelech had instructed nobody to bother Yitzchak and Rivka. But Koresh soon listened to the Tzorei, Binyamin v'Yehuda, the enemies, and he stopped the construction of the Beis HaMikdash. This is similar to when Yitzchak when Avimelech banished Yitzchak and Rivka. Then, the eventual successor, Darius, reverses this hostility to the Jews. So, that's an interesting comparison. Similarly, those of us who were listening to the laning in Parshas Bechukosai during the Tochacha, in the middle of the Tochacha, all of a sudden, and I'm the Baal Koreh, so I'm laning with a low voice. Then we get the Zacharti as Brisi Yaakov, as Brisi Yitzchak, as Brisi Avram, and we raise our voice in the middle. And then all of a sudden the Tochacha continues, and we do a low voice. And then the Tochacha ends again with the Zacharti the Yavos. So here as well, Ramban sees an allusion to the original proclamation of Koresh to allow them to build the temple, and then the reversal, and then again, the pledge of redemption. So we see multiple parallelisms. Okay. Let's start Perek. V'isnabi Chagai Neviah uZechariah bar Ido. Chagai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Ido is also a prophet. V'isnabi Chagai Neviah uZechariah bar Ido Neviah Ayudeh. They are prophesying about the Jews, the Yehuda Yerushalayim, who were in Judea, in Jerusalem, Bishum Allah Yisrael Aleyan, in the name of God of Israel. This is now in the second year of Darius's reign. That was mentioned in the last pasuk of last perek. Right before Darius is going to get involved here, these Nevi'im, Chagai and Zechariah, remember, who's the third? Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. Malachi, Zu Ezra. And Ezra is not in Yerushalayim yet. Ezra is going to show up 8 years from now, after the building of the Beis HaMikdash. So he's not on site yet for him to prophesy. But Chagai and Zechariah are there. Now, here in our text, we are not told what their message is. But in Sefer Chagai, Perek Aleph, he says, Ko amar Hashem tzvakos lemor, ha'et lachem atem lashevet bevatechem sfunim v'bayta zecharov. Are you going to sit in your homes and let the house remain desolate? Ko amar Hashem tzvosimu levavchem al darchechem. Put your minds to it. Alu ahar v'avetem eitz. Go up to the mountain, bring wood, uvnu abayis, and build the bayis. The eretz sabon, I will like it, ve'echbad amar Hashem. So Rashi there says, Bishnas Shtayim l'Daryavish, the second year of Darius's reign, Hu Daryavish melech parashaya achar Achashverosh. He tells us exactly who we're talking about. After the 14 years of Achashverosh, Matzinu, b'midrash vayikra rabba shebna shel Esther haya. That this was the child of Achashverosh and Esther. And Rashi gives us the whole story there in commentary on the first pasuk in Chagai. In the years of the first Koresh, Zerubbabel and Yoshua, which we've learned already in our Sefer, they went up from Bavel to Shalai and Berisha and Koresh with the permission of Koresh. Shenamar mibachem mikol amo. However, Amdu Tsar Yehudu Binyamin, enemies of Judea and Benjamin stood up. Shalchu igrosem leKoresh, sent letters to Cyrus the first Litzavos Levatel Mlocha, Beis Hamikdash, to stop building. And then, as it states in Ezra Dalet Chav Dalet, which we just learned, Badin b'teilasav, it is based on the construction was stopped. Says Rashli Bitla Shalosh Shanim Shamalach Koresh. Koresh had another 3 years to reign. The Arba'as Shel Achashverosh, 14 of Achashverosh. V'shana Rishona Shel Daryavish, so that's 18. Uvishna Shtayim, in his second year, Nemra Nevuah, Zu L'Chagai. So in the second year of his reign, this prophecy was told to Chagai, L'zarzem Lachzor V'livnos B'melacha. And they should rebuild and don't be afraid. Ki lo yuvatlu ha'akum, the goyim will not stop, Shakadosh Baruch gets lichem. And the first Nevuah in Zechariah says exactly the same thing. And he goes through the same story that he just said here. By the way, this is now the temple was destroyed 3388. And now, this second year of Daryavesh is the year 3408, which is exactly 70 years from when the actual Churban took place. So after 52 years, there was like a Pekida, which was 70 years after like an earlier exile. But the Beis HaMikdash gets restarted, mamish, 70 years to the year after it was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. Very important to know that. Okay. Pasuk Beis. Badin Kamuz Zerubbabel ben Shaltiel. So Zerubbabel stood up with Yoshua bar Yotzadak Kohen Gadol, the Sarav and his officers, Lemivne Beis Elohad Yerushalayim. They began and commenced building the temple of God in Jerusalem. Imahon, with them, Niviyai Delaham Esadin Lahon, were God's prophets assisting them all the way. So they didn't delay. Upon hearing this prophecy from Chagai, Zerubbabel and Yoshua Kohen Gadol immediately started working. Pasuk Gimel. Now, Beis Zimna, at that time, Asa Alehon Tatni Pachad Avernar. Tatni is the governor of Israel, which is called Avranar. Ushtar Boznai, that's his assistant. Vikan Vason, and their companions. V'chein Amrin Laho. They approach the Jews and they say, Min Sam Lachem Te'em, who issued this decree to you? Beisa Dina Livne, to build the bayis, Vushana Dina L'shlach, and to reinforce its walls. This Tatni, in Targum Esther says, was the father of Zeresh, who was Haman's wife. So he's a Rasha. but he's going to take it in a diplomatic way. We were given the names of the real Tzara Yehuda, Mitredet, Tabel, and Rechum, Baltaim, and Shimshi. So where are they? How come they're not mentioned here? Oh, because Purim has taken place. And when Achashverosh gave the Jews permission, Li'ikael v'lamon al nafsham lashmid larog labeis kol chelam, they killed these people in Israel who were their tzoras. So now there are new governors. There's Tatnai. In Perush Ezra Rav Binyamin, it says Tatnai was a Jew who converted to the different religion. And when it says in the Megillah Hakarov Elav Karshna Sheitar, Sheitar is Tatni. These are little facts that we can put away. So anyways, Tatni is questioning them, who gave them permission to start this. The Yalkut Shimoni says that at this point the Shomronim brought an army of 180,000 men to attack them. Because of that, when Ezra arrives in a few years from now, with Zerubbabel and Yoshua, condemns them to external excommunication from the Jewish people. The entire Jewish congregation gathered at the temple with 300 school children bearing 300 Torah scrolls, 300 Kohanim sounding the blast of 300 shofars, singing of Levium. They invoked the esoteric, ineffable name of Hashem and pronounced a solemn oath of excommunication. From that time forward, Jews could not eat bread baked by a kusi, and no kusi would ever be accepted as a ger. And they were also banished from the Olam Haba. Even King Darius ratified that. Pasuk Dalet. Adan kenema amarnu lahom. They asked, Min anan shma guvraya didana binyana banin. Give us the names of the people who are involved in constructing this building. Zerubbabel was appointed by the Persian kings. So we don't see this discussion here, but we see it in Chagai. They mention Zerubbabel, and that would be like a stamp of approval to start with. Pasuk Hey. Ve'ein Eloham havas al Shava Yehuda. Hashem protected the Jews. V'lo batli himo al time aladar yovesh. And no work was disrupted until it could be brought, this discussion, to Darius the king. So Edin Yesuva Nishtavda Aldana. So they're going to write a letter to Darius to explain what's going on. There's three different approaches who the they is when they would write a reply. Rashi says it refers to the Jewish elders. That means when they get the reply from Darius, the Jewish elders would write a reply, giving their arguments. The Mitzuda says that they is the king and his counselors. That means the work would be allowed until the royal court's reply was received. And Malbim says it refers to Tatnoi. But either way, a letter is going to be sent to Darius. And Parsheget Pasuk Vav, Parsheget Igarta Dishalach Tatnai Pachad Avarnara. This is the text of the letter sent by Tatnai, who was the governor of Ever Anar, Ushtar Boznai and his companion Shtar Boznai, Shesar, Ukan Vasei and their companions, Who were they? The Aparsachei, the Bavar Nara al Daryavish Malka. They live, these are the Aparshachins of the Trans River, which is Eretz Yisrael. They supported Shetar Boznai. And this pasuk was written on the outside of the letter to identify who the authors of the letter were. Pasuk Zayin. Pizgama shalchu aloi, v'kidnek siv begavelu dayavish malka shlama kala. This is the message that was sent to him. King Darius, everything should be in peace. They wanted to say that this is, even from the governor, that it's not a request for the king's favor. It's not a complaint against other citizens. It's an inquiry. What does the king rule concerning the construction of the temple? So they're going to request for the king to reply. Pasuk Ches. Yediya le'evel malka. We are informing the king. The Azlan Yehud Medinta Lebeis Rabba, that we have visited Judea and we have come to see the great house, the great temple, Lebeis Rabba. V'hu mitnebei even klal. It is being built of marble. Va'amit sham b'chtulaya, and the walls are being reinforced with wood. Vavidate dach asparna mitavno matzlech biyodim. The work is actually proceeding quite quickly, and it's very successful. He wanted to emphasize that the construction is not a threat to the Persians. He just wanted to confirm that what the Jews are doing is acceptable to the king. The stones used to build the second temple were much smaller than the stones in the first temple. And the fact that it was reinforced in wood, the Malbim says this was to win favor for the Jews, because wooden walls can be destroyed by fire. So the king is assured that the Jews are not building like an impregnable fortress. Others learn that Shlomo HaMelech also reinforced the stones with wood. But the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah wants to suggest that Darius told them Shlomo HaMelech built the wood very high. And so it was not easy to access. But Daryavesh, even the son of Achashverosh and Esther, did it within the binyan so that eventually it could be destroyed. So they want to say that eventually he also became bad. But that's a debate. Pasuk Tes. Adyin she'elne l'shave ilech kinema arman lahom. In the letter, the governor says to the king that we question the elders. And we said, Min sham l'chom tam beisa denala mivnei. Who gave you, was there a decree issued that you can build this temple, Vushana denala shachla, and reinforce its foundations? Did you get a decree? Pasuk Yud. Va'af shmatam shelna lahom lo diachla. We asked them for their names so we could tell you who they are. The nichtav shum gvaya de brosheim. Who are their leaders? Pasuk Yud Aleph. Uchenema pisgama hativuna lemeimar. So they replied to us. Anachna himo avdoi de Elohar Shmaya va'ara. We are servants of the God of heaven and earth. Ubanayin baisa dihava b'no mikdama dinosh nin shagian. We are rebuilding a temple that was built many years ago. Umelech li Yisrael Rav, by a great Jewish king, Shlomo HaMelech. Banoi v'shach lalei. He built it and he laid the foundations for it. They're trying to this temple has ancient origin, and the greatness of its founder Shlomo justifies its reconstruction. Pasuk Yud Beis. Why are we in the situation that we are in? Lahen min dai hargizu avasana lehelu shmaya. Our forefathers angered God of heaven. Yahad yimo b'yad Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel. And they were thrown into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel. Ubaita denasasre va'ama hagli leBavel. And he destroyed the temple, this temple, and the people were exiled to Bavel. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Biram, however, this is the Jews speaking still. Bishnas Chadala Koresh Malka di Bavel, in the first year of Koresh, who had taken over from Nebuchadnezzar the kingship of Babylonia. Koresh Malka Sham Te'em. He decreed Beis Elah Dina Livna, that the Beis HaMikdash should be rebuilt. Va'af Mane the Beis Elah, even the Kalim of the original Beis HaMikdash, the Dahava V'Kaspa, the golden and silver vessels that belonged to the first Beis HaMikdash, the Nebuchadnezzar handpicked min Hechlot Yerushalayim. Nebuchadnezzar had removed them from the Beis HaMikdash in Jerusalem. He brought them to his temple in Babylonia. However, handpick imo Koresh Malka, Cyrus, the Persian king, removed the kalim from the temple, from the temple in Bavel, the Yehivu l'Shevzatzar Shmei di Pecha Shmashame, and gave it to Shevzatzar, who we learned before it is Daniel, and told him, and he appointed it governor. Later on, Zechariah is going to identify Shevzatzar as Rubavel. The Yalkut Shimoni argues and says it's Daniel. Pasuk Tezvav. V'amarle El Manya. He told him that means Cyrus the king told Daniel or Zerubbabel, El Manya say Ezel Echaz Himo Beichal de Yerushalayim. Take these kalim and bring them to the Beis HaMikdash in Jerusalem. Ubeis Elah Yisna Be'al Asrei. And let the new Beis HaMikdash be built on its original place. Edin Shezbatzer Dachasa. So Zerubbabel, let's learn that it's Zerubbabel, proceeded Yahav the Beis Elah to lay the foundations of the new temple, the Yerushalayim. Uminadan vad ka'an misnabe v'lo shlei. But it hasn't been completed. They don't go into the story, the Jews, that, we started building and it was stopped. They didn't want to remind that. They didn't want to emphasize that Koresh himself, who had allowed them to come back, had halted the construction. They just said, it hadn't been completed. They were smart. So Yud Zayin, uke'ein hein al makatav, if it finds favor in the king's eyes. Listen what the Jews advise. Yizbakar bevez gniza de malka. Do a search of the library or the archives in Babylonia. Tamadi bebabel hein yisidim in koresh malka sim te'em. please look for the decree that King Cyrus had decreed, Lemivne Beis Hadach Yerushalayim, to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, U'Ru'us Malka Adonai Yishlach El Yana. And please send us back, convey to us, O king, your will in this matter. That's how the Jews conclude their discussion with the governor. Okay, let's learn Perek Vav.
Why do they have to tell the governor all this? Yes. Koresh didn't inform them?
There's no, Koresh is long dead. Koresh allowed them to go back, and then he stopped the building it after a year. Then Koresh lives another 3 years and dies. Then Achashverosh becomes king, 14 years.
Right,
And now Darius II.
right.
So in Darius' second year, Chagai makes a nevuah, and he tells the people, start building. And they start building. This governor comes by and says, what are you doing? Have you gotten a decree for this? So we just had this dialogue. The Jews tell him, this is what happened. Koresh gave us permission, blah, 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 blah. The whole story we just learned. They're now sending a letter to Darius the king. Darius doesn't know anything about the rebuilding of the temple at this point. The temple rebuilding had been stopped by Koresh 13 years ago.
But the Koresh is the second.
This is Koresh Hasheni. Koresh, he hasn't issued any proclamation. The work on the temple began when Chagai gave a nevuah to them. Rebuild. That did not come from Darius II. So when the governor, Tatnoi, saw them building, this letter now has been formatted by the governor. He took the testimony of the Jews, he wrote it in there, and they're sending this letter now to Darius to get a response. And what did they just say now? Look in the archives, you're going to find the original decree of Koresh from 14 years ago. You with me, Tzvi?
Yeah.
That's the story. That's the story that we have so far. Now, remember, we learned that during the time of Koresh, who stopped the building? It was the sons of Haman, Shimshi, and other Tzara Yehuda that eventually are killed, in the last few years of Achashverosh's reign during Nes Purim. But they were involved in hiding all of these documents in Bavel. They don't want the original documents that Koresh issued to allow the Jews to go and rebuild. These Seifrim, who are Seifrim? They're scribes. Who works in the archives in the library? These very people. So the Meforshim are going to say that they hid it. It's going to be Hashgacha of Hashem that a decree is found. Let's see how it's found. Pasuk Aleph, Perek Vav. So we're going to do almost 3/4 of this Perek, and then next week we will finish Perek Vav, God willing, and we will start Perek Zayin, which ushers in Ezra Sefer making Aliyah from Bavel to Yerushalayim. And so we have the last 3 Prakim, Zayin, Ches, Tes, and Yud, with Ezra Sefer actually present, even though the book is called Ezra. So that tells us where we're going. So Badein Daryavish Malka Sham Te'em. So Darius issues a decree, Ubakr B'Bei Sifraya, to search the library. The Ginzaya Ma'achtin Tama B'Bab. V'ishtakach be'achamta. Look at that word. Achamta means a pouch. And we have a similar word, Amtachat Binyamin, right? When the brothers are sent away from Paro, they hide Paro's cup or Yosef's cup in Amtachat Binyamin. I think it comes from the same word. Bishtakach be'amchamta bebirta. There was a scroll discovered in a pouch, Dimodai Medinta Megillah Chada, in the province of Media. V'chen ksiv begavei dechrona. And this is what they discover written in this Megillah. Remember, the Babylon was the first capital city. It was in Babylon that Koresh issued the decree that they should go up and build the temple. Achashverosh, who succeeded Koresh, moved the seat of government to Shushan. Perhaps that's another reason why the original decree was hard to find. And particularly the prime minister was Haman, or Tatnoi. But Darius now, when he issues the decree, nothing is found in Babylon, but the hand of Ashgacha is found and a copy is discovered in the new capital of Media. And what is written there? Bishnas Chada LeKoresh Malka, in the first year of Koresh the king, Sam Te'em, he issued a decree regarding Beis Elohim Yushalayim, regarding the temple of God in Jerusalem. Beita Yitbedei, it should be built. Aser Didavkin Divchin V'Ushoy Mesuvlin. It should be built so they can offer sacrifices. Ruma Amin Shisin, Psaya Amin Shisin. It should be 60 amas high and 60 amas wide. Nidbakin Dieven Glal Plasa. There should be 3 rows of marble. V'nidbach di achadas, and 1 row of wood. V'nifkasam in Beis Malka Tisyoiv. The expenses should be paid by the king, by the royal palace. And the decree that they read continues. V'afmani Beis Eloha didava v'kaspa, the golden and silver vessels that belong to the Beis Hamikdash. The Nebuchadnezzar handpicked min hechla di Yerushalayim vehevel levavel, that Nebuchadnezzar had removed from the Beis Hamikdash in Jerusalem and brought to Babylonia. Yativun v'yach lehechla di Yerushalayim should be given to the Jews, who will bring them to the Beis Hamikdash in Jerusalem, la'asrei, v'tachas beveis Eloha, and they should remain in the temple of God. Again, I said before that the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah asserts that the kavanah of Darius in having this combination of stone and wood is different from Shlomo. Shlomo ordered that the walls be partially built of wood to enhance the temple structure. The wooden sections for Shlomo were placed in the upper portion of the walls, embedded in the width of the wall, covered with plaster. Darius, though, added the wood so that he might have the temple burnt should the Jews rebel. His wooden beams were positioned in the lowest levels of the walls, exposed at the surface of the wall, so they might be easily ignited. And therefore Darius's virtue is blemished. Pasuk Vav. Okay. So Ka'an Tatnei Pachad Avarnara, Shtar Boznai Ukavna son. So Tatnai the governor, and Shestar Boznai and their compatriots. The Afarsa Chedi Bevernara. Rechikin Havu Min Tamo. This is a decree sent by Darius to the governor and says, stay away from the Jews. Stay away from the construction site. Do not disrupt the construction. Shuvku, lavedis beisalah, let the work of the temple, dach pachas yudei l'shava yudoi beisalah dach yivnon alasrei. Leave the work of this temple to the Jewish leaders and the Jewish elders. They shall construct the temple in its place. Not only that, look at Pasuk Ches. Uminisim te'em lamadi ta'avon. I issue a decree to you authorizing your activities with these zakenim. What should you do? Lemivnei Beis Elah, to construct the temple. Dachu min chasei malka. The payment should come out of the royal estate. Dimidas avernara, from the trans river taxes. Atzparna nafkasa tehevim misyava legvurye, elach tedolavatala. It should happen quickly, and it should happen so that the construction should not be disrupted. So previously, Tatnai was told not to sort of interfere with the Jews. Now, there was no requirement that they have to pay for it. Now they're commanded that they have to participate actively in its restoration, including financially. The non-Jews have to contribute an appropriate funds for it. The cost of the whole project was borne by the royal treasury, to be paid out of the taxes collected in the Trans River, and it should happen speedily. And other demands, umachashtan uvnei toirin, v'dichrin v'imrin, cattle, rams, sheep, la'alavon la'hashmaya, to be offered as olos to the God of heaven, should be given to them. Chintin, wheat, melach, salt, chamar, wine, umashach, oil, kamemer kahane de Yerushalayim, according to the needs of the Kohanim, levi misyav lahom yom, biyom dilo shalu, should be supplied to them daily without delay. And of course, olos, these are animals, and of course the wheat is for a mincha, the oil is for a mincha, the wine is poured as the nesachim. All korbanos were salted, so they are supposed to provide the wherewithal for all of these goods. Pasuk Yud. Why should you give them all these animals? There should be a pleasing sacrifice to God. And he adds, they should pray for the lives of the king and his sons. So here is a debate that in Baba Basra, when they talk about tzedakah, it says tzedakah tiromain. Charity will cause somebody to be elevated. Ela Yisrael. That refers to when Jews give charity. Tichsiv, umi kamcha Yisrael goyechad baretz. But then it says v'chesed le'umim chatas. When the nations do chesed, it's a sin. Because the Gemara says, called tzedakah v'chesed she'umos avdei kachavim oisin chetu lehen. She'enan oisin ela lizgadel bo. They do it either because they're haughty, and they bring this pasuk that we just quoted, that it's all, that I should live, my children should live. That even when Umas Ha'olam do mitzvos, it's for a purpose, and it's for their own good. Let's finish. Umini se'im te'em. So I issue a decree Anyone who deviates from the rules I just laid down, that you can't disrupt the Jews, you have to help them. Yitnasach amin besa. The wood should be removed from his house. Uskif yismeche aloi. They should build a gallows. Ubesa nevalu yisabed al dona. And they should hang him from the gallows. Ve'elohadi shachan shmei tamah. And the God whose name dwells in that building, Yimagar kol melech va'am v'yishalach yedei, should cause any king or nation that comes to destroy the temple, they should be destroyed by God. Anyone who tries to ruin this beautiful temple of God in Jerusalem. And he concludes it, Anah dayarvish shames te'em, asparna yisavid. I, Darius, have decreed that this be implemented expeditiously. And therefore, Adin Tatnei Pachas Avanar, the governor Tatnei, and Shasar Bozna Chunav Nason, Lekabel Disholach Dayavish Malka Kanema Sapran Avadu. Based on this letter from King Darius, they acted expeditiously and they carried out everything that he requested that they do. Here we'll stop, because here we're going to start talking about how they built and how they celebrated, and that we'll stop in the middle of Yudalit, of Vav, and go weiter. Questions, comments, are wrote. Esti.
I want to get this thing.
Yeah,
So
we
I
can
don't
hear you.
understand. So you saying that they're implying that anytime non-Jews help us, it's because they have an ulterior motive?
That's from this pasuk, because you see, he sent the gifts, but he said, you should daven for me and my children. You know what? I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail next week. There's a Mesilas Yesharim, there's a Rambam. Esti's opened up, and I'm going to go into it a little bit more. By the way, there are Gemaras that say, if you give charity because you want to live, for the health of your children, it's a good thing. So why are they saying that when he asked for it, it's a bad thing? So we're going to have to go into that a little bit more in detail. You have to see some Rishonim who discuss this. But from the pasuk, the Gemara darshan, the way I darshan, that when Jews give tzedakah, it's elevating for them. When goyim, it's considered that they're doing it for ulterior motives. Now, obviously, there are exceptions. So we'll go into it.
Okay.
Okay, have a good
Uh,
Shkoyach.